Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Not sure how many people are joining us. I'm Ralph Simone, and I'm joined by Tiffany Patton, and we are here this evening to bring you the power of journaling. And really excited. We shouldn't be too long. One of the things we'll ask you to do is to mute yourself. There will be time for Q&A at the end. But I wanted to start with everybody just taking a deep breath and kind of creating a little buffer between all of the activity of your day, wherever your day took you. And I want you to think about this quote. This is one of the quotes that appears in the Vitality Journal. And I think it speaks to the essence of the power of journaling. Observe yourself in action. Don't judge, just notice. Adjust your thinking and behavior to be aligned with who you really are. I'm going to say that one more time, because why would you even want to journal? Observe yourself in action. Don't judge, just notice. Adjust your thinking and behavior to be aligned with who you really are. So tonight we're going to talk about why the Vitality Journal, and then we're going to look at a couple of things. First of all, context before content, and that will give us an opportunity to really kind of set the table and look at the planning funnel. And then we're going to get into the pages of the Vitality Journal. We're looking at doing journaling on a quarterly basis. And if you think about this whole piece of journaling, patterns of behavior are driven by habits of thought. And so journals are often useful to help us notice our pattern behavior. But we also need to know the thinking that's driving that behavior, the why behind it. So in journaling, it's not enough just to track your activity. We need to track our thinking, our activity, and our intentions. And I think intentions are really what we want to achieve. So as we move through this journey, I wanted to set this, any planning tool, any journaling tool, any tool that we use is intended to help us become more aware, more woke. And for that to take place, we need to have context before content. And so I wanted to explain the planning funnel for you, because and this is explained in the journal. We actually have a write-up that would explain it. The planning funnel, or the success funnel. And as you use a funnel in your life, the whole purpose of a funnel is to get all of your important activities into your week or your day. So the very widest part starts with purpose. When you think about journaling, why are you even doing it? Purpose is what provides meaning to our lives. It makes us feel like we are doing things that matter most. And whenever we feel a little out of sorts, a little on edge, it's because our day-to-day activities and thinking are not aligned with our true purpose or who we really are. I want you to think about that. And so journaling can help us with that. Second part of the success funnel as we go down are values. Part of our planning process says you do what you value what you do. And so as we're journaling around activities, we want to really make sure that we are paying attention to the things that are most important to us in our lives. Probably one of the biggest benefits of journaling is it helps us scale our leadership. And scaling our leadership simply is building the capacity and the capability to get outcomes that matter most. Let's take a look at the third piece of the success funnel, which is declarations. I used the word intentions earlier, but declarations are speech acts made by someone with the power to do so, you, to bring something into being that didn't previously exist. Ladies and gentlemen, language is creative. It's generative. So in our journal, when we look at the first page of our journal, we'll see it when we start our day. What are we declaring as success for the day? We know that what we focus on expands. So we want to focus on what we want, not on what we don't want. Next part of the success funnel is energy renewal. You're going to see a holistic, integrated piece where we look at 4 dimensions of renewal. How are you feeling physically, spiritually, mentally, and emotionally? And then as we continue to go down, we've got goals. And in our journaling and planning process, forget SMART goals, because the research says they're not too smart. They're too intellectual. They're too left-brain. We're going to push you in the success planning process and the use of Vitality Journal for vital goals. You see the connection, vital, vitality. They're verifiable. They're inspiring, which I think is the main thing that differentiates them from SMART goals. They're actionable. They're time-bound. And I think this is great. They're limitless. Don't bound your goal with a set number, add or more or less to it. Allow the universe to conspire with you to get even more than what you originally dreamed of. And then lastly, in the success funnel, we're talking about action. In the early stages, when I started to study time management, one of the best books that most people have never read on it was called Connections. We want to use journaling and planning to connect our day-to-day activity with our goals, our declarations, our values, and our purpose. Or another way of saying purpose is just cause. So I wanted to take you through this funnel, and so that you could see the context that's absolutely essential before we go into the content of journaling. And I like that word essential. You know, what are the essential things you need to be doing for optimal impact? Too many people have too many things. They're too busy, quote unquote. And we need to begin to eliminate or filter out the things that do not contribute to our values, our purpose, or our high leverage goals. So I wanted to spend about 7 minutes or so really kind of teeing up the success funnel before we take a look at the specific pages of the journal. And one of the things, the way that this is laid out is that the journal, and we're going to take a look at the pages right now. We look at a quarter at a time, and in each day of the journal has actually 2 pages. And there's an opportunity to date the journal. And dating is important because we want to be able to reference back. We want to be able to look for patterns of behavior. And so we're going to use the journal, put a date, and we start with setting your intentions. What are your top 3 declarations for the day? You know, one of the things that I said today is, I will be guided by intuition. I will be kinder in all of my interactions. I will make choices that are aligned with my purpose and values. So it starts with creating 3 declarations for the day. And we talked about a declaration is creation. It's a speech act made by someone who has the power to do so, you. Next section of the journal is your motivational focus. Ties to the inspiration part of vital goals. You fill in the blank. Today I feel inspired by. What do you feel inspired by? But there's a second question in this motivational focus, because we live in an interdependent world. So how will you create conditions for others to be inspired during the day? So we're really becoming very intentional about what we will achieve and how we will motivate ourselves and others during the day. As you move down the page, and those of you that have worked with me or have worked with Jay or Nick or Brian at Dynamic Health and Fitness, see the physical check-in. How much sleep are you getting? You know, the research around sleep is fairly consistent. So you've got 8 Z's across. How much sound sleep are you getting? The sounder the sleep, the more effective you are during the day. What's the number of 8-ounce glasses of water? Now that's kind of a little limiting in that we know that the goal with some variation is half your body weight in ounces. It gives you a chance to track that. But not just track that, pay attention to how you were able to concentrate and focus during the day when you are well rested, when you are well hydrated. Next, we look at nutrition, an area that I have been charting over the last 4 months, and I've actually lost 18 pounds. As you begin to look at nutrition, your food choices were good, average, or needs improvement. Then on the bottom of that left-hand side of the page, you've got an opportunity to give yourself some specific notes around what improvements you'd like to make. And then there's a section for my movement today was how much time and what was the type of movement? Was it mobility, strength, metabolic, or power? So we're now tracking, but we also want to always go back to patterns of behavior are driven by habits of thought. This gives us an opportunity to track both the patterns of behavior as well as the underlying thinking that's driving that behavior. The very bottom of the ribbon, there's also a spiritual check-in. Now in spiritual renewal, we're really focused on those things that provide us with joy and really reinforce our purpose and meaning in life. The spiritual check-in is an opportunity for gratitude journaling, and it's simply a fill-in. Today I feel grateful for. One of the studies that was done by Sean Aker in his book, The Happiness Advantage, is that if you do gratitude journaling for 2 minutes per day for 21 days or more, you will raise your happiness index or your feeling of joy and goodwill. So now we'll go to the next side of the page, which is the emotional check-in. And this can be done a couple of times through the day. But kind of an interesting study of high effective leaders. Our work at Emergent, we're working with senior level leaders and high potentials on driving and scaling their leadership effectiveness. Most recent research says that highly effective leaders have 3 points of reflection during a day. So the emotional check-in is a time to check in, what was my overall mood for today? What was I most aware of? We know that people that are highly aware, highly conscious, are able to make choices that are more aligned with their purpose, values, and goals. So it gives you an opportunity to note that. I love this next question because part of mental renewal is, what new thing did I learn today? I often get asked the question, what makes somebody really an effective leader or a great candidate for leadership coaching? And I always reply the same way with 2 answers. One, they have an openness to learn, a curiosity, and they are willing to experiment with different behaviors. Something that, in order to get the most out of the Vitality Journal, will be critical to your success. And then the last question that's tied to mental renewal is, how did I change things up today? This is interesting because sometimes it sounds like people that are in the personal development business contradict themselves. They want you to develop habits like journaling, in exercise, in hydration and movement to improve your effectiveness, but we also want you to periodically change things up. And those of you that have trained with Jay and Nick and Brian know that if we do the same thing over and over, we begin to get bored. The body gets bored and we sub-optimize our results. So how did we change things up today? The very last part of the daily journaling page on the right-hand side focuses on continuous improvement, Kaizen, right? Constant and never-ending improvement. What areas would you like to focus on tomorrow? So it tees you up. I did well moving, but I was a little sloppy eating. I didn't spend enough time kind of reflecting on how I felt during the day. I actually didn't start the day intentionally with 3 declarations. So it gives you an opportunity to begin to ask and answer those questions and to begin to look for patterns on a daily, weekly, and quarterly basis. And the other question, very last question on the bottom of that second page is, what are the opportunities for better integration among the 4 areas of renewal: physical, spiritual, mental, and emotional? So the last thing we take a look at in this journal, and it's every 30 days, is the 30-day reflection. And the 30-day reflection is really intended to bring us back to this quote that I've shared a couple times during the webinar: patterns of behavior are driven by habits of thought. If you go over the last 30 days, what are you noticing? What patterns of behavior? Where have you been consistent? Where have you been inconsistent? But more importantly, what are the habits of thought that are driving this behavior? And then last but not least, and I've been experimenting with this journal for the last 6 months, what changes in thought or behavior will you make this month or this quarter? We know that the definition of insanity is doing the same things over and over again and expecting different results. Use the journal, the Vitality Journal, to give you the information on patterns and be willing to experiment and change things up in your thinking. Emerson, and I'll end with this quote and then we can open it up to any questions. Emerson said that the ancestor to every action is a thought. If we want to change our behavior, we need to go upstream and change the thinking. So what thinking will you change so that you can step further into your full potential? Thank you.